will decide this week if a hotel in North Ferriby in East Yorkshire can be used to house asylum seekers. So, the reason why this is important for you and not to the people of, East Ferriby, North Ferriby, is for reasons I'm about to tell you. East Riding Council applied for an injunction to prevent the Humberview Hotel being used by the Home Office to house single adult males, which is, let's be honest with you, pretty much everyone who's coming over the channel. This maybe, just maybe, might set a legal precedent. It might mean that if you get wind of a hotel in your area potentially being tapped up for use like this, some kind of injunction could be brought in and that will be blocked. So, we actually went out and spoke to locals in that area a little bit earlier on. Here's what some of them had to say.
It's absolutely ridiculous because there's nowhere for them to go. They end up starting walking down the main road here, you know, and there's nothing for them to do.
Obviously, you know, people need somewhere to live, and they need a safe location to be after what they've been through. But I think it's just the wrong location for it around here.
Totally wrong for migrants of any descriptions. For one thing, where the hotel is, it's alone. There's nothing around it for anyone. There's a village a mile and a half away with one small tobacconist shop. It's nowhere for them to go apart from the city of Hull, which is almost 8 miles away. No, I'm totally in disagreement.
I mean, some people would argue that there are places for them to go, but there we go. If not in hotels, where do we house these people? I want to hear from you on this, of course I do, because this is a massive issue for one. In towns, cities, villages, right across the UK, it's not just, I think, the fact that people don't want people to be homeless. I can understand all of that. I can understand completely that people don't want people freezing in tents in the depths of winter, and that people's conscience wouldn't really allow them to do that. But I know for a fact that a lot of people are getting very, very wound up at the fact that we have a homelessness problem in this country. Homeless veterans is always wheeled out as one, and hotels are being increasingly filled now with asylum seekers. Single men, it would seem, as well, in a lot of cases, and people saying, well, the cost of the taxpayer every single day, 7 million quid a day, roughly. It's a lot, isn't it? To discuss this further, I am joined now by human rights lawyer Paul Gilbert. Paul, thank you very, very much. Now, either people in pretty much every town and city in the UK are going to have to buckle up and accept the fact that they have a migrant hotel in their area, or we put them somewhere else. What are the alternatives?
Well, that's a very good question, and ultimately that's really a practical question. The fact of the matter is that there's a legal duty on the Home Office to provide accommodation for these asylum seekers who come into the country by various routes. And there will be a minimum standard that has to be met in relation to that accommodation. You know, that's why, as you rightly say, putting them in tents, freezing in local parks or wherever these tent villages, notional tent villages would be, simply wouldn't be right. And indeed, actually, that would be a breach of the right under the Human Rights Act in relation to the treatment of the asylum seekers. So that's why you have to put them into some sort of accommodation.
Just quickly on that, Paul, but just before it escapes my mind, you mentioned human rights. Obviously, I'm a human rights lawyer. It'd be weird if you didn't. But what about the human rights of the people? What about the human rights of the people in the area? I have heard some absolute horror stories. I've been to a few of these hotels, and it's something that we cover regularly here on GBNews. I've heard some absolute horror stories from residents about people not feeling safe when they're walking the streets. There are also massive concerns about the safety, for example, of a nursery school that backs onto one of the hotels that's very near where I live, as it happens. People have heard some horror stories, and I won't delve into them mainly because of the time of day, actually, about some of the things that have been going on, predominantly because they feel as though they don't necessarily know who a lot of these people are, because we don't know who a lot of these people are. What about the human rights of the people already living in these towns and cities not to have to go through this?
Well, you're really talking there about the commission of criminal offences, because presumably it's the fear of being attacked, it's the fear of being intimidated by an asylum seeker, I'm assuming. I'm going on what you're saying.
Having a picture taken up her skirt on the way back from school, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a criminal offence. So the fact is that the criminal law protects citizens in those situations, and that is the way that that is dealt with. I mean, I think it's really important in these situations to appreciate that the law is a process, and it follows a procedure, and it's not, if you like, a guarantee that you're going to be walking down the street and not subject to some sort of
but do we have to be plonking people, hundreds of them at a time, and in some cases maybe 1,000 in a town or city? We are exacerbating the sense of unsafety, aren't we?
Well, when you say exacerbating people's sense of safety, I suppose ultimately that's an individual's feeling about their sense of safety, and that's the sort of individual issue. But the fact of the matter is, you go back to where I started, where you've got a legal duty on the Home Office to provide accommodation of a certain standard for the asylum seekers, and there's going to be a minimum standard for that. Perhaps it doesn't have to be a hotel, but then it has to be something equivalent to it. And I suspect that the answer is that there isn't an equivalent to a hotel that's as practical as a hotel is. And that's why this is what is happening. It's going to be interesting to see what the High Court does decide in relation to this challenge that's being launched. And as far as that's concerned, you mentioned, that word precedent earlier, Patrick, quite rightly, if I may say so, because it will set precedent. I mean, all cases are decided on their facts, but the fact is that the High Court will, in the course of deciding that case, I suspect, give guidance as to where local councils can or perhaps they can't.
Well, this is really important.
The use of the Home Office by a local hotel.
Yeah, it's really, really important, this bit, actually, and I'm glad you've kind of brought us back there, because this injunction, let's just assume it happens. We'll have to wait and see. We're just in the world of the hypothetical. Let's assume that this hotel is granted an injunction, a permanent injunction, so that they don't ever have to house asylum seekers, or they can't ever house asylum seekers. So East Riding Council wins this particular case. Presumably,
it's not the hotel. Sorry, just Patrick, to be clear, it's not the hotel applies to the injunction, as I understand it. I think the hotel has signed a contract with that.
That's why the council has signed.
It's the local council. Yeah,
that's why. Yeah, exactly that. That's why the council is trying to do this. So presumably, any council now, if this case is successful, could go and try to get injunction in their area, which is a big step, really, isn't it? Because previously, a lot of councils didn't really necessarily know they could do that, I think.
One assumes that's the case, and certainly if the injunction is successful, and in a way, the more you look at this, the more it seems probably unlikely that it will be. But if it is successful, yes, any local council who was of the view that they did not want asylum seekers housed in hotels in their area, because, of course, the local council may decide that they do. But if they didn't, then they'd have to look very carefully at what the court ordered and how it ordered it, to see whether or not they could rely on that precedent in support of obtaining an injunction, or in fact, actually, probably they'd write to the Home Office and say, look, we object to this. Don't do it. If you do, we're going to get an injunction, and we'll get it because the East Riding County Council got it in the past. So that's probably how it would work. But yes,
it would sort the wheat from the chaff a bit. It would sort the wheat from the chaff a bit. I mean, I have actually been saying for quite a while, actually, that maybe we should be putting some of these people in areas that voted for political parties that appeared to want open borders and stuff like that. But apparently that's all a bit rough, and we all have to take our fair share. But I would have thought that as the...
hang on a minute. Patrick, you can't say that because a particular area voted in a particular way that's what the entire population in that area think, can you?
No, but I think that those areas, in my view anyway, should bear the brunt, because the vast majority of the people in that area have that thing. Yeah, that's my take on it. Anyway, a bit of a Martha's Vineyard situation, one would say. But look, thank you very, very much, human rights lawyer Paul Gilbert there, who's just discussing about whether or not there's about to be a legal precedent set potentially for your area, which would mean that your local council could get in touch and essentially block migrant hotels in that area. Your views as ever, but coming up, I'll speak to a nurse who doesn't back the nurses' strike. That was a big breaking news at the top of the show. Nurse is going to walk out at the end of this year. What do you make?